Que paso, fans of cinema across the globe? You got Jaime Enfuego here from The Horror Show, that's right, and I am here for the first in 2016, a very special segment that I am calling Enfuegotorial, that's right. This is basically yours truly, Jaime Enfuego, talking about something that I want to editorialize. I want to talk about some bueno, some malo, and some feo here in the film and TV industry, just basically the entertainment industry side of things that is not musical. We're talking like something you would watch on a screen, whether it's your computer screen, your television screen, movie, series, whatever it may be. And I guess timing is everything, right? Because here in the year that we just ended, 2015, I got a hair up my ass to basically cover the entire Tales from the Crypt series, all 93 episodes over the course of the month of October. 93 episodes, 31 days in the month of October, so the addition kind of worked out perfectly to cover 3 episodes a day. I went through the whole series. It was an insane process, arduous, exciting, and very enlightening, and being the most part, especially since I was such a huge Tales from the Crypt fan since I was a kid. I must admit, it's probably the series, along with The Twilight Zone, that really just gave me my love for horror, man. I mean, it really like lit the flame that eventually turned into, you know, working for this show and doing my own sort of coverage with them and on my own. So today some big news dropped, and I guess timing is everything, right? So I go through the entire series. I didn't get every episode edited in the month of October. I got like about 20 something and change, but yeah, they're all up on my YouTube page now, so you can watch all of those and go through the entire series along with me, pick and choose, whatever the hell you want to do. But the timing is everything part being the fact that today, TNT, that's right, Turner Network Television, that being of Ted Turner, multi-billionaire global and, you know, just purveyor of everything from television to movies, all kinds of different stuff. They announced today that Tales from the Crypt is returning. Yes, that's right, returning to the small screen, in fact, on TNT. Here this upcoming fall 2016, you gotta believe that it's gonna be on, you know, October radars, and that's probably when it's gonna premiere. But the even more exciting thing than the return of Tales from the Crypt is that the person leading the show is gonna be none other than M. Night Shyamalan. That's right, the Shamhammer, guys, as my homie John Campea would call it. And I gotta say, I have mixed feelings about it, which is why I'm going to go bueno, malo, and feo in this editorial and just basically give my thoughts about, you know, him being the showrunner, him putting together actually not just this new Tales from the Crypt show, but a 2-hour weekly block that's going to be on TNT and have all kinds of horror and suspense content. So Tales from the Crypt is not going to be the only thing, you know. Fingers firmly crossed for a return from Joe Bob Briggs, Monster Vision. How awesome would that be? Yeah, I know it's probably not going to happen. But so yeah, let's talk about it first and foremost. The bueno of Tales from the Crypt making a return to the small screen, just making a return, period. This was a series that enthralled ever since the 50s when the EC Comics, Haunt of Fear, Vault of Horror, Tales from the Crypt, Shock Suspense Stories, they had so many different imprints under the EC umbrella, but obviously the flagship was Tales from the Crypt, and it really scared the crap out of so many parents and politicians that it ended up instilling the comic code because of indecency that was in the book. But the funny thing is, at the end of the day, these were merely morality tales, and very much like The Twilight Zone, which was later on inspired by it in the early 60s, and shows that came later like The Outer Limits, and then stuff in the 80s like Monsters, and oh goodness, who can ever forget Tales from the Dark Side, the one that George Romero did following Creep Show. So all of these different anthology horrors were inspired by those original EC comics, and so just seeing this property making a return to any screen, it may not be the big screen, so it's not another movie like, you know, the amazing Demon Knight or the very bad Ritual and Bordello of Blood, you know, or even those 70s ones that they did, the Vault of Horror and the Tales from the Crypt one, that they were both these odd, like, British 70s anthologies. Not bad, though, not bad. Definitely got to check them out. I have a review coming of both of those films soon on here on Enfuegotainment, but yeah, just a return in any capacity of this show is flippin' awesome. It's inspirational. It was, I mean, it has just really left its imprint on so many modern filmmakers, so many filmmakers from back in the day, amazing writers like Stephen King. I mean, the list goes on and on. The property needs to be reintroduced to younger generations who will eventually go and seek out the older stuff. And so, yeah, man, I could not be happier about seeing Tales from the Crypt make a return. And yeah, for that reason, we have loads of bueno. And another bueno is the fact that Shyamalan is behind it, you know? Gotta say, The Visit was a return to form for him in a lot of ways. It was a found footage kind of Enfuegomentary, which has become so popular since the Blair Witch, and then even more so stuff like Paranormal Activity. But nonetheless, man, I think it's going to be really cool to see what he does with the property. He always had twist endings to pretty much everything that he's done, and that pretty much fits right in line with Tales from the Crypt, am I right? So I think the series, I very cautiously, okay, I'm going to revise, cautiously think the series is in fact in good hands here. However, we're going to jump into the malo now. The malo is the bad, because here on Enfuegotainment I always do the good, the bad, and the ugly, the bueno, the malo, and the feo. And so the good is that we are seeing this highly influential show make a return. The bad is the fact that it's on TNT. Now, this is the thing here. Tales from the Crypt was very different than your Tales from the Dark Sides and your Outer Limits and Twilight Zones and stuff like that, for the sheer fact that it cranked everything to 11. Whether it was the bloodletting, whether it was the nudity, whether it was the profanity. I mean, he really perfectly encompassed the darkest, most sordid underbelly of humanity. And honestly, a lot of the monsters that you saw on Tales from the Crypt, they aren't vampires or werewolves or, whatever. You saw that on the series, or, people rising from the grave, but many of them were real life people. And that's what really, hey, the human heart is one of the most monstrous and dark things that, hey, we've definitely left our imprint on all of civilization for all the bloodletting and chaos and destruction that we have created. So to not be able to go a full niner, man, or to 11 as I should say, but a full effing niner, man, to not be able to do that, to be within the constraints of network television, I think it's a bad idea. There's a reason why Masters of Horror, when Mick Garris had that show going on Showtime, was so flippin' good, and then when it was rebranded as Fear Itself on NBC, it just did not pack as much punch, man. You have to have the free creative reins. Now, some would argue the source material did not have that nudity, and it did not have, some of the extreme violence, although a lot of that artwork was pretty grisly, especially for the time. And so, I don't know, relaunching, also another malo I gotta mention, with new stories and old stories. The William Gaines ones were classics for a reason, although they did kind of start to run out of ideas near the end, and they were ripping off anybody they could think of, from Ray Bradbury to, the list went on and on, Robert Bloch. But yeah, the fact that they're going to be doing new stories, we saw the success of that, or the lack thereof, I should say, of that relaunch of Tales from the Crypt with new stories that they did in the last decade or so. So, I don't know. Malo is the fact that we don't have free range with this new series. They cannot go all out, and also for the sheer fact that I'm very skeptical about, just new stories, how fresh they're going to keep it, how much old they're actually going to have on there. So, also another thing you got to remember is that the Shamhammer started out amazingly with stuff like, The Sixth Sense and Unbreakable, which is less of a horror and more of like a comic adventure suspense drama, and some would even argue that Signs was good, but he was pretty bad, man. This is the same guy who made The Happening. This is the same guy who made Lady in the Water. Not really horror, but really, really bad. It was horrific in a different way. And also something like The Village that was trying to be something, and the twist just for me did not work. So who knows how directly involved he's going to be in on this. He's also got Endgame Entertainment, which is going to be assisting him. They actually have done production on a lot of stuff, from horror movies like White Noise, which was pretty good, with Michael Keaton, to even more interesting like sci-fi time traveler player like Looper. So, but then again, they've also done stuff like Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle. So can't fault that, on them. So I don't know. There's a little bit of malo for you. The fact that we're on a network where I don't think Tales from the Crypt belongs, definitely a malo, and I'm skeptical about the creative juices that they're going to have going with it. Now, if they bring on big name directors like Masters of Horror did, like Tales from the Dark Side did, like Tales from the Crypt did, I think that there's hope. So lastly, we are going to go into the feo here on my Tales from the Crypt, just a little Enfuegotorial about the resurgence of the show and how it's getting ready to come back to TV. The feo is John Kassir, because I get on his Twitter this afternoon after reading this amazing news that just had me jumping for joy before I saw it was going to be on TNT, and also before I saw that John Kassir mentioned having no idea about this, having read about it, learned about it on the internet today. So I'm assuming that this is because of the fact that different licensing rights are for the Crypt Keeper in contrast with Tales from the Crypt, like the original source material on the books and stuff like that. At the horror show here, we actually got to talk to him at the 2015 Mad Monster party that took place in Phoenix, Arizona. Check out Mad Monster if you haven't got the chance. Those guys are rad and super amazing. And he basically broke down everything about why the show hasn't returned and all this other stuff. You know, the Crypt Keeper became so iconic, I think maybe even more iconic than the series itself. That opening theme, that intro that Danny Elfman did, and just him jumping out of the coffin and everything, it really solidified itself within pop culture, especially in the 80s and 90s, as just being a watershed moment. I mean, they did an animated series where they softened the character, all the merchandising, the licensing, the albums that they put out with him talking in between. There was a heavy metal album, there was a Christmas album. I mean, seriously, they licensed the hell out of the Crypt Keeper, and thank goodness it has still kept the incredibly talented John Kassir within our just, you know, our public consciousness, within our remembrance. But if he's saying he hasn't been contacted yet, I kind of have a really really ugly feeling that he is not going to be involved, man. And so if he's not there, it's just immediately, goodness, it just turns my stomach a little bit. However, if they can somehow work out something with him, that instantly gives credibility to this new production, in my opinion, much more so than even the Shamhammer being involved. So another Feo is the fact that, you know, I want to see Feo, I want to see ugly, I want to see gory, but I guess I already touched upon that in the Malo. So yeah, here's to hoping that they can bring on some quality people to really just, I mean, bring the most out of this. We know there aren't going to be tons of boobies and graphic sex like we saw in certain episodes. We know that there's going to be a limit to the bloodshed. It is not going to be able to go all out like the Ash vs. Evil Dead series did on Starz this past season. So there's going to be constraints, but, you know, some of the better Tales from the Crypt episodes did not have any of those F-bombs, and they did not have any of those, you know, just graphic, needlessly, you know, seeing naked people for the sake of it being on HBO. So I don't know, as you can tell, I'm trying to give a silver lining here at the end, amigos, but I'm very skeptical. That is the best way that I can put it, but still hopeful because it's a property that really touched my life and has just continued to enthrall and inspire me until today as I'm sitting here talking about this. So I gotta extend a grande gracias for you tuning into this exclusive and inaugural for the year 2016 here on my solo page, my Enfuegotainment. Please be sure to check out The Horror Show at thehorrorshowchannel.com. That's where I do pretty much all of my scarific coverage, unless it's just, you know, something quick like this that I want to get right up on the internet. Also find me at all social media sectors at Jaime Enfuego, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, obviously here on YouTube, and please be sure to do that like, share, and subscribe stuff if you dig what I have to say. I would love to talk to you guys, comment, you know, share. Let's get involved in talking about, you know, this entire new endeavor that is exciting yet kind of frightening, all in the same regard. And also please be sure to check out Porfa y Gracias, my 31 episodes of the Tales from the Crypt series coverage, as well as my episode where I covered all 3 of the films. Yes, there were 3 Ritual, well, that's one that they kind of swept under the rug until just a few years ago. So once again, I've been Jaime Enfuego. Gracias for tuning in, and until we get to talk more fright-tastic and exciting stuff here in 2016. That's right, it's going to be a great one for horror. Adios, amigos. See you soon.